My name is Scott Bourne. I'm the operations manager here at Deaver Suspension. We are celebrating our 131st year in business in the same location approximately most of that time. We are kind of a leader in the forefront of leaf spring design and suspension. We utilize high leaf counts of thin material and use only exclusively 5160 American-made spring steel, which allows us to have a high carbon rate in our steel, which gives us good memory so we don't suffer premature fatigue or sag. A couple other bullet points with our leaf springs: we diamond cut the ends of the leaves, we use anti-friction pads at the end of the leaves, 4-piece bolt-through retraining clip hardware. We do military wraps on the stationary end to prevent any further damage if a main leaf were to break.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's what makes your leaf springs different.
That's our difference. That's our edge in what we're going up against with the competitors in the markets. And stuff like that. Yeah. Obviously, what we've made for Shadowmarq is a typical Deaver type design. High leaf counts of the thin material, rather than the OEM designs on these. We know is very limiting. It's 1 or 2 leaves. There's several different options depending on the size and the wheelbase of the vans, but it's a very limiting factor. So what we've done here is we've been able to increase the capacity based on the particular build weights, as well as increase wheel travel, articulation, and ride quality and comfort.
Nice.
All right, so now's the moment we're going to go take a drive in this thing and go into a little bit further detail on the driving conditions and drivability.
Sounds good.
So obviously we're going to do the best we can here in our beautiful city of Santa Ana. We were going to be somewhat limited, but we've got a couple of areas that we can kind of go through and showcase and kind of get an example of where the benefits of this spring versus a factory spring are. One of the things most people will notice immediately is this: as soon as you get the capacity right and paired up with the GVW of the van, this being the 3500 and the 10,005 to 12,005 GVW range, is you no longer have to have that bottoming out feeling. So if you've ever ridden in the back of one of these things down a road with a factory suspension, it is not exactly pleasurable. The idea with us is to capture a little bit more compression travel and not be so close to that bump stop. We should immediately notice is better driving manners. More control of the body roll, less body roll, I guess you should say. Smoother cycling of the wheel travel, and just an overall pleasant experience when you're in not so good road conditions. So the design philosophy is the same. Like I said before, we use the high leaf counts of thin material. The difference is the thickness of the material grading. So in the lighter duty versions of the vehicle, of the builds, like you said, in the 8500 GVW range, we'll be using a thinner material grading throughout because we're not needing to increase the capacity of the spring that much. By the first visual look of our springs, they're pretty daunting. They're a big, thick pack. And some people will look at that and scratch their head and say, how could that possibly ride good? Well, take the analyzation of a notepad, 10 pieces of notebook paper, and they're very thin and pliable and compliant. And then say take the back of that notepad, which is a little bit of a cardboard piece, 3 or 4 of those, much more of a rigid design. So that's a simple way of trying to explain what the thin material is actually capable of doing. Now, like I've said before, you have to couple that with good high carbon rate in your steel, which is done through the heat treating process, which is crucial for the memory of the steel, because the thin material can fatigue prematurely if stressed, if they've got a poor heat treat or temper, and that's what you find in a lot of steel that comes from outside the United States.
So what are those signs? We're gonna see flat springs, basically? Yeah,
we're gonna see springs lose ride height. They might start Wing out or have premature cracking or breaking with fatigue. You'll end up maybe with a lean, and that's just all due to just inferior spring steel. And you know, you get what you pay for truly when it comes to a leaf spring. When you see things out there that are a fraction of the cost, it's usually because they're coming from overseas and the quality of the materials not even close to matching it.
Okay, so on the 3500, Shadowmarq added a extended leaf shackle. What will that do, or how does that help?
I think it's a good added feature that kind of is one of those little extra things that all contribute to ride quality. Obviously, with ride quality in these vans, it's a combination. It's spring, it's tire, sidewall and flex, it's shocking. So all of those things all contribute. So that shackle's a nice little added piece to it. We run a reversed eye when we're trying to gain as much compression travel as possible without lifting it tremendously, because the one thing we do know about these vehicles is they do have a high center of gravity, which gives it that characteristic in the body roll. So giving us a reversed eye actually allows us to have, at ride height, static ride height, a little more compression travel than if we used a conventional eye. It's something that we definitely do when we have spring platforms that start relatively flat like these do. We don't really have much of a choice, because short of lifting these things 6 or 7 inches, that's the only way we're going to gain some positive arch at ride height. Those are little things that we pay attention to that, you know, maybe another place that's just developing a kit's not really thinking about, but that's just because we've got years of experience and we just know what makes a leaf spring work and is happy.
Yeah.
You know, for the folks that have ever been down to Baja, California and know what those washboard roads are like, this spring package is a definite upgrade. Handling terrain like that, or expansion joints, or just, you know, mild off-roading, night and day difference with what the spring is capable of versus a factory spring. So Deaver Spring was established in 1892. We're celebrating our 131st year in business. We've been a blacksmith shop primarily in the beginning, but always did horse and buggy and carriage springs. I think they had some local contracts where they were rubber cording the wagon wheel tires. And we grew up here in an area that was primarily dairy and farms. So we were a blacksmith shop at the beginning, and now we're primarily leaf springs.